Okay, well, I'm Dave Bauer. I ranch northeast of Bismarck in the north of Baldwin and Riggin, kind of in between Baldwin and Riggin. And I got about 250 cow-calf operation with the heifer development also in that. And I try to move my cows at least every 3 days. Sometimes I get into areas or time constraints where I'll put them in a bigger area and then they'll be there longer. But then too, if they seem to be overgrazing a spot on that, then I will fence that off, so at least they have to stay into a different part. So a lot of times I'll do it, I call it either flex fencing or it's just using, often people use polywire. I've come into areas where I've had to try to fence off 3,000–4,000 feet. So I'm using a different, it's an aircraft cable. And so then I can get longer distances, and the conductivity of that is better than with the polywire at the long distances. So polywire is lighter, easier to work with. This is much heavier, and the spools and everything are a little bit different. So there's pros and cons to both sides of it. So this is the wire. And now this is galvanized, and you can also get stainless steel. They both work. Stainless steel probably lasts longer. This is rusty, but it's still pretty good. And I can go long distances. It's a cable, so it's quite long. And as you saw earlier, as we recorded it, what I'll do is I'll just make a loop on the end, just a fisherman's knot or a hondo or anything, kind of a loop, and then I'll just run that through the loop on the post. And these are just this one here type is a Gallagher ring top, they call it. The metal only goes up to here. So then when if the wind causes the cable to saw a bit, it won't actually saw through and go to the metal. So I like that part of it better. It doesn't have the metal backing. So sometimes, like if a deer or a moose or something comes through it, or they get frightened in a storm, they'll go through it. But generally, once they know the fence is there, they don't break these. But what'll happen is something will come through and break this, because it's a carbon fiber plastic. So that happens. But what I did is I just took the loop, wrapped it through there, and then I'll hook it right to a barbed wire fence. The barbed wire will be on this side, and once I pull it, then it pulls that away from it, and I don't have any trouble. And then I can go on to any barbed wire fence, any place I want to, pull off of that, as long as I have something to hook to once I get to the other end. The cable comes in 10,000 foot rolls or 5,000 foot rolls, and it kind of depends on what you can get and where you can get it that makes it work. So and then just picking it up, one of the little tricks I've found is if you're on one side, this side with the foot feet, if you reach over the wire and grab it and turn it, it pops right off. Or if you're coming the other direction, if the loop is towards you, that's the side you want to grab it from. So if the coil is towards you, you just grab it and twist, and it pops right off. And if the coil is away from you, you have to reach over the wire, grab it, and it pops off. So you don't even have to get off the four-wheeler once you get on. It's just you'd figure it out eventually. But then once I get to the end, I'll put that up against, now this wire is hot here, so sometimes it kind of depends. If I'm on a barbed wire fence and I have a hot wire on that, there'll be other wires that I can hook to. or that I can put this strap above and I don't have to worry about it sliding down. But in that case, sometimes what I'll do is just wrap it around twice. And then it tightens up and then it don't drop. And this is the handle then that comes with it. And then I just tighten it up. Oop. If you can't hold it with your fingers, it's probably too tight. And then you put it in there. Then I use these jumper cables. You can kind of either make them yourself, or you can buy them actually also. And then I'll put it on the dead wire first, and then hook it to the live, and then I gotta jump. The other way I'll do it too is I'll just have regular wire with me, and then I try to make sure I have a thick-handled insulated pliers. The thin-handled ones don't work, but you find that out quick too. And then I'll wrap it around that one, and then you use the thick-handled pliers and wrap it around that, and then it's hot. So now this is hot. Once the cows come up here, they'll understand that they'll see this, and generally they'll see the spool, and then they'll just kind of walk along it and figure out where that line was, and then that's where it is. They don't mess with it from there on. So if I brought in a herd that's never been around it, generally what I'll do is I'll kind of put them in a pen sort of by the water, so they have to come up to it. Sometimes I'll even, depends on how many head or something like that, but how many head and how big a tank I have. I may even put that cable right over the top of the water tank. That way I can protect the float and that kind of thing. A lot of times I'll do that regardless. But they, get to water and start to push around a little bit, and they touch that wire, and it'll probably shock 3 of them beside that cable, and I don't want to walk into it either. and they learn to that quick, and then once a few of them have been shocked, they don't generally, I don't think they even all have to be shocked by it, and they understand that's hot and they don't want to touch it. So then it kind of becomes not only just a physical barrier, but a psychological barrier. Because sometimes, I won't have the jumper wire with me, or I forgot it or something like that. If I put it up, once they're trained to it, they won't even mess with it even then. And sometimes I've even dropped it down to the ground and to drive over it with a pickup or something like that, and forgot to put it back up, and they still respect that wire. So it's a good thing. Instead of trying to herd your animals with horses all the time, like years ago you had to, we're able to increase our stock density and increase our utilization, and then rest also. And that's the most important, is the rest side of it. So you're able to get them on it, make them eat everything, or eat portions of every plant that's there, and then able to go back and then rest, just like everything. It always depends on your year. It depends on the soil types that you're dealing with. It depends on the area you're at. If you're up on a hill like this, you can get a good year, but even on a good year, that hill, once it's grazed, it's going to take it's going to take a year for it to come back. So it works both understanding your topography and understanding the season that you're in. Some years you just don't get the rain, and you need to go, okay, I've got to figure out my plan better because we're just not getting the rain, so we got to divide it up more. The harder the season, the more you should be fencing. Everybody looks good when you get plenty of rain. And if you look at your pasture and it's as good as the stuff on the other side of the fence, you probably got your recovery there. You can actually stick a flag in and watch for that recovery. Once you can't see a bite and everything is good and going, and you're getting good moisture. So it's not like it isn't bedded into the system a little bit for getting a quicker graze, but you really want to watch that so that you're not overgrazing and hurting the plants. They'll go after one type of plant all the time, and that will be overgrazed, and then you'll have other plants that are less palatable that aren't grazed hardly at all. So you'll have, in an overlong season grazing, you'll have both way overgrazed pastures and way undergrazed in the same pasture, or plants in the same pasture, and that's just as bad as overgrazing the whole works and then pulling them off, or worse actually, because you're changing your actual diversity in your pasture by doing that. And some people say, well, you know, what if my calves get on the other side of it? Actually, I like something better like this for my calves than, say, a 2-wire or 3-wire fence, because with this, a calf will get on the other side, and if its mother is on the other side and the calf is over here and the mother bellers for it, that calf just runs right underneath. But by moving them every day, one of the things I want to look for is everything is usually, when I move fast, the plants are growing fast also. That's one of the things too. You would be amazed at what will happen to the vegetation in that once you take them animals off. And then that'll make you so excited you just want to keep doing it. You know, you got family, you got harvest, you've got all the other different things you're dealing with, and it just kind of frustrates you. You get to enjoy the fencing part of it so much, you almost get frustrated because you see how it improves the land so much. So you should learn something, and if not, you should be failing at something so you do learn. You know, I guess it's one of those things that it just, sometimes you think you screw up, but it's probably more of a learning experience and can help you figure out what you want to do better next time. But I really enjoy the flex fencing and how that works, and well, that's why I kind of call it that, and that's not what anybody else calls it, I guess, but it just makes everything so flexible. What does the land need? What do the cattle need? What are my needs? It all works together.